Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Select Board will be called to order March 20th, 2025 at 6 p.m. We're with the Budget Board this evening, and we're going to be talking about capital projects and capital outlay and whatever. Would you guys like to
Sure, so
yourself
we'll
to
start off
order?
with roll call then, in that case. So Alan Evelyn? Here. Carol Cook? Here. Do we have Dan Beard yet? Okay. Charles Tremblay? Here. Bob Wester? Here. Dimitri Michaud? Not here yet, right? No, don't see him. Kai Leffler? Here. David Jordan? Here. Dave Betsis? Here. And myself, Michelle Powell.
All right, great. Would you guys join me in Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. I'm going to be turning this over to Lori, our town manager.
So, good evening, everyone. Yanina passed out some documents, so you should have the agenda for tonight. Yes? Yes. You should also have the RSU budget. We didn't print off the hundreds of pages, but printed off about 23 pages for you to include in your packet. I'm just making sure I put mine in there. Yep. And they had their first reading on Monday night. They are going through the process, and our process will be done before their process is done, but that's where they are at this point in time. We also updated the commitment sheet with the new education number. Yep, so the one that we have that's marked 317.
Is that a separate sheet?
You don't have it yet. Yeah, it's a separate sheet.
I got it, thanks. It's coming. Thank you very much. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
So you will see on this sheet, in red up above, it says March 17th. Their new number is $14,210,118. That's for us, which is about a $1.2 million increase, or 9.37%. So if you look down in the mill rate calculation, previously, they were at a 19-cent increase based on our estimate, and they are at a 31-cent increase currently. Does anybody have any questions about that? Not that I have any answers, but.
And we're still waiting for the county to get its final to
Yep,
us.
we're waiting for that budget committee to get appointed, and then they will begin that process.
Do we have any reason to hope they'll be a little less drastic in their approach? I don't know.
I think hope is always a great thing to
It's a
hold on
wonderful
to.
thing to have.
Lori, I did have a question. I saw an article, I know this is not the purview of this board, but I saw an article that the state's looking to recalculate or do the model differently in terms of how they calculate the school portion of that funding. Have you heard or seen anything on that?
So normally what the Department of Education at the state does is they do what's called the ED 279 form, and that's released to schools in February for the coming fiscal year. So I'm not clear what they're planning on, whether they're looking at it for the next fiscal year. But the funding that they have in this is based on what the state told them in February. So tonight, we are going to review the capital. So Dave, can you change the slide?
Lauren, just a quick.
Yep.
I'm sure that people are aware of the fact that commitment, increase is subject to the federal funding being put into our RSU 21. If it isn't, if they don't have the funding, then that number jumps again.
Yep.
Did they give us any outlook of what that range is if we don't get that funding, by any chance?
It's up to Janet.
No, it's
I
not.
No.
think the number they were talking about was about 1.4.
1.3.
1.3 is what I heard, yeah.
For our school?
No, total,
RSU 21.
total, so
Total
our,
RSU 21.
it would be our
Okay.
formula percentage, so it'd be
Our
significant,
percentage of that.
be significant.
Right, but I was just looking at what it would hit. Okay.
Okay, so as we have talked about, capital involves long-term investment, and we have used many tools in our tool chest, and that has been bonding, and it has been operating capital and reserve accounts, but we have also used grants, and we are in hopes in 2025 to receive a hazard mitigation grant. We're receiving positive feedback from the state. And so including that one, and these are just our capital kind of projects, our resiliency planning. This does not include other smaller grants we've received. But since 2017, we have about 15 million in projects that we've accomplished through capital planning with an average 82% grant. So for every dollar in local funds we've received $4.58 in grant funds overall. So I think this has been a great investment of our capital money and made it stretch much farther than it normally would have.
Thank you, Lori, for that.
Yeah.
So this was from our first presentation. There is, this is just an overview that we're gonna review tonight of everything that is in the budget regarding capital. So as we said before, the FY '26 capital is 2.46, which is an increase of about 40,500 from fiscal year '25. So tonight we have the chief with us to talk about police capital. So his capital is under your capital and debt tab, debt service capital. And he begins, so the first page you'll see is administration, but we did that the first night, which was our digitization and historical records. And so the next page, 176, is where police starts.
Hi, everyone. So this year, we're looking to replace two of our older vehicles. One of them is a 2016 Dodge Charger. This car had been a frontline car for us for several years. And it just dawned on me that this car went into service 2 years before I retired the first time. So, so it's probably overdue. And so we're looking to replace this car. Currently has about 114,000 miles on it. We figure it'll probably have 120 or so by the time we go to replace it. We're looking to replace this car with either a 2025 Ford Explorer Police Interceptor utility like we have now, or a 2025 Dodge Durango Pursuit. We started to look at the Durangos because right now there's some favorable pricing on them. They're running a little bit less than the Ford Explorers. And the other vehicle that we're looking to replace is a 2021 Dodge Charger. This one is still frontline as we speak. This car is getting up in mileage as well. And we're actually looking to replace this one with a pickup truck. What we have seen is we have a need for a pickup truck for a number of reasons. One of which is, obviously storms. We've seen the need for us to be able to go out and place barricades, cones, and stuff like that during a storm. We would use it for our sign installation. As you're aware, we had the electronic speed signs throughout town, so it'd be much easier to work out of a pickup truck. We can't fit them in the cruisers that we have now. And so we would also use this to pick up large items of evidence or lost property routinely we get called to pick up found kayaks, bicycles, that type of thing, and those currently don't fit in our Ford Explorers, so we generally end up having a kind of bug highway to come down and pick those up for us. We're also looking to replace 2 of our WatchGuard cameras. So these are the cameras that are in our frontline cruisers. These run constantly when the vehicles are out on patrol. Currently, 2 of them are 14 years old and they're kind of well beyond their service life. So we're looking to update these. And we're also looking to move toward the purchase of 10 body-worn cameras. This has pretty much become a standard practice now at most police agencies. Obviously, there's a variety of reasons for us to want to have these, but more than anything, I mean, you can sum it up, enhancing transparency and accountability, evidence collection, improving officer safety, reducing complaints and litigation, building community relations, promoting officer training and professional development. So we are trying to kind of get up to speed with the rest of the industry and purchase these.
So just to note, this camera and the police vehicle cameras are both proposed to be funded through the pick of it. So they're in the budget, but in the revenue, we have a transfer that equals the cost of these 2.
Yes.
Do we have any of those yet?
Any body cameras? None.
None, okay.
None. No, all we currently have right now are the ones that are in the cruisers.
Hey, Chief, what's the rest of the car crew like? Is this like, we're gonna flip these 2 out this year, or 2025? Is
Yes.
this next year, 2026? Are there a couple other ones that are up, or?
So next year, we were looking at 1, and that is a detective's vehicle. That is a
Okay.
2015 Ford Escape. And mileage-wise, there isn't much on the car, but in speaking with Rick Bleakney, our mechanic, it's getting rather soft underneath. We're
Okay.
losing that one to rust.
And then when we bring the cameras in and stuff, are there maintenance things that we need to do to them on a yearly basis per any regulation or anything like that, or
Are you referring to the cruiser cameras or to the body cameras?
body?
Body cameras, so, no, it's actually a pretty easy setup. So we had already replaced our WatchGuard server a few years ago. And, so these cameras are compatible with that
Okay.
server, real simple.
Okay.
Officers come in at the end of the shift, they simply put these cameras in a dock, they download, charge, the oncoming shift takes another camera. So there's not a lot of maintenance with those.
Okay, thank you.
So this is the chief saying, does anyone have any questions?
Oh, okay.
Because he's done with his presentation.
Anybody have any questions?
You mentioned the capabilities that you have with the pickup truck. Does the other new replacement vehicle offer any new capability that the old one maybe lacked that will help you out?
Are you referring to the Dodge Durango?
Yeah.
Not really. They're not much bigger in size than the Explorers. Right now, they're just less money.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, does anybody make an electric compatible police cruiser?
They're out there. I haven't looked into those. We have had discussions with McGovern, which is who we bought the last few Ford Explorers from. They have taken several hybrids back because they have not been very reliable. The agencies weren't happy with them, so McGovern actually bought them back, and those are going out to auction. So there's been some reliability issues with what we've seen, at least with the Ford Explorers, and I have not seen an electric version with the Dodges yet.
So what's the difference in price between the Ford and the Durango, roughly?
Right now, it's $3,000. The Durango is $3,000 cheaper, so it's, it's a healthy discount over the Ford.
Thank you. Any more questions?
You'll totally retire those other vehicles then?
Yes, those will be traded.
They won't be repurposed for any other town?
Not unless another need's been expressed, so.
I guess you're all set, Chief.
All set? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So your next page, 177, is communications, but there's no request this year, so we are on page 178 with fire and Chief Everett.
Good evening. So, similar to my operating budget, is kind of a lot of the same things, just refreshed for this year. My capital is no different. The money for the Scott Air Packs is what we've been putting in. This is year 7 of 8, to get to a total of 380, and that's what I'm being told is gonna cost us to replace our air packs, which will, in FY '27, be 25 years old, and that's the recommendation of the manufacturer, NFPA. So that's the goal we're looking at right now. Unfortunately, it may go up between this year and next year, but we're on target right now, because with this 59,000 going in, we'll have 321,000 in the account towards paying for it.
Was a 380 at this year price, or was that 5 years ago price?
No, this has been, I've been moving it each year.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So what do you do with the old tanks?
The old ones, part of the bid process would probably be what would they give us in trade, things like that, and then we can look at that. It's not much. A lot of times these will end up in a big box and go to somewhere in South America, country that doesn't have what we have. I do that with turnout gear when we're done using it. So this is really the only thing that's kind of new is basically the 10-year replacement of my vehicle. The two pictures, not of the top side of the truck, are the underside. I had to replace, Rick, the mechanic, did some framework this year for it to get a sticker. The year before, I had to put cab corners and rocker panels in it. So we're good now as far as it's still a decent truck to hold on to. I'm gonna keep it to use as a utility vehicle where we can throw hose and equipment in it after a fire, or if people are going to a class out of town or something, it could be used for that, for their travel. But it's replacing the vehicle that I would drive every day. Next one. This is our normal one of replacing our turnout gear. I'm on a schedule of replacing 7 or 8 sets a year. I keep our turnout gear for our interior people for 10 years. And then people that are exterior only, bringing them newer gear, but it might be a 10-year-old set that an interior person had. It's a kind of a standard to do that for people that could go inside the burning building to have gear that's no more than 10 years old.
So have they been improved as the years go by, or are they the same as they were 10 years ago?
The gear itself?
Yeah.
Oh, very much improved. But the rub comes is the cost.
Yeah.
We buy very good gear that protects our people very well. But there's the cost to it. And then this is a normal $75,000 to go into our future replacement of apparatus. This account would go to 218 with that, and our next engine to be replaced is long after I'm gone. It's 10 more years, 11 more years, something like that.
Oh, you'll still be here, you'll be fine.
Yep, I think that was it. Any questions? Yep.
Your vehicle replacement, the Ford F-150.
Yep.
Is that gonna be a Ford F-150?
More than likely, I asked about doing the Ford version of like a Tahoe, I forget what, Expedition, I think they're called. And they said I could only get it in black or white. And it's kind of funny because the white fire truck out here will be going away when the new one comes in at the end of the year, so kind of be a poke in the eye a little bit if I ended up with a white vehicle. But it's more I'm leaning more toward the pickup truck as having a rollout that has radios and a command board that I can track calls when we're at calls, where people are going and all that kind of stuff.
So what kind of new vehicle warranty comes with that? In terms of, I know when you get a Ford F-150 pickup, there's a maintenance program that you get for 2 or 3 years. Do you get
Yeah.
the same thing?
I will look into that. I would assume so, because that type of stuff comes from Ford.
Right.
It's not the dealer, so it probably the 3-year, 36,000, like a lot of ones do, but I can certainly get that answer to you. Anyone else?
Any benefit to bidding your vehicle with the police cruisers that are being replaced?
Chris and I could certainly, talk about that, because if he's looking for a 150 as well, if the budget's approved, we could certainly. Mine, it would end up being different in that there's gonna be a cap on it because of what's in back. I gotta keep it dry and all that stuff, but certainly for the vehicle, because I got information from Chris on going to McGovern, because they do everything for us too, radio installations, the lights, all that stuff.
Any more questions?
Good, thank you.
So next, we have Eric LaBelle with the highway capital on page 179.
Yeah, so the first request that we have for replacement is you can see the vehicle lift here on the right-hand side. It's a rotary lift is what is the manufacturer of this particular one. We're looking to replace that to a new model. It's basically aged out, so. We do get them inspected on a yearly basis. It's not unsafe, so we wouldn't be utilizing that, but it's recommended we replace. Next slide. So as you see here, this is, we do not currently have, well, I guess this is what we have for a trailer. It's not currently on the road.
Looks like an old fence.
Yeah, it's certainly past its life expectancy at this point. We're looking to replace that, possibly to transport equipment, possibly a small excavator, other small pieces of equipment that we can transport as opposed to.
Grass growing.
Is that still usable?
I'm sorry?
Is that still usable?
You could sell it for barnwood.
No, no, we haven't spent the time to try to reinvest and repurpose that again,
Okay.
so.
Must have carried lobsters on it.
Yeah, so this here is actually a trailer that it's difficult to see, but actually you would drive up, it actually tilts backwards, you drive up onto it and it actually closes itself. So with a piece of equipment that maybe you have a very short wheelbase is able to drive up onto it. So this is actually the current building that we have now is it's basically a pipe arch or a structural arch building. Effectively, it's half a culvert, for lack of better terms, a very large one. What's happening right now is at the top of the concrete wall along the edges, we've had perforations along there, so we're starting to be concerned about the structural integrity of the rest of the structure, because basically all the weight of that structure leans on the outside walls and to the exterior walls. As we lose, obviously, connections on those exterior walls, it's gonna weaken that. The force from basically the roof pushing down will eventually expand out. So what we're trying to get ahead of that, what we wanna do is try to salvage the foundation that's there, demo the metal components, which is basically the pipe arch over the top, and then replace that with a tension fabric building, which you can see on the right-hand side there, which is gonna be less, it's gonna be more efficient and more cost-effective.
Is it gonna be the same size as the one we have now?
Yes, our goal is to utilize the existing foundation.
Yeah, so our insurance company has been inspecting it annually, and so far they're still letting us use it, but it has been a question mark. So that is why we have it in the FY27 budget. We anticipate the cost will be $300,000, so we thought we should put $100,000 towards that to reduce the amount we needed for next year.
And right now, it's a multi-purpose truck. This is, what we're looking, as you can see here, you have a dump truck, but we're looking to purchase a multi-purpose truck. We basically could remove that dump body in the back and possibly change it out with a different, possibly a flatbed, possibly the other types of, it could be a roll-off container. There's different types of setups. But the truck actually has an arm similar to a tow truck, if you will, that actually can pull a new body on the back of the truck and then change that out in a matter of minutes as needed. So we're trying to get something, a truck that's basically a little more multi-purpose.
And this again is one that's really scheduled for FY '27, but the cost of trucks has really gone up, and this one being one of our large vehicles is quite a price we would normally not budget in 1 year. So we are looking again to put some money aside this year towards that purchase next year.
Can I just make a comment? I think I've said this before in prior years, but I think it's fantastic what you guys do and your predecessor as well internally, with not hiring out. I've been in other towns and they hire some of equal or bigger size, but they hire somebody to do almost everything. And the fact that you can do it with your existing staff, equipment, I think is commendable to all of you guys.
And one arm.
Yeah. Well, he had to twist it to get there.
Yeah, no, it's, we've got a good crew, multi-talented crew, and that's very helpful.
I think it's really special.
It is.
I think we're lucky.
We're very fortunate to have a dedicated staff. So we're gonna give you a break and then you're gonna come back. Because next we have Allison up to talk about the ramp at Public Health.
Don't we have our pictures? So I have this ramp on the front of the building that is, I don't even know how old it is. It's been there as long as I've been there. But it's falling apart, it's rotting, and the highway guys have been over to help us re-secure some areas, repainted a bunch of times since I've been here, and there's sections that are just soft and sinking, so it's time to replace it.
Yeah, and up here it says 30,000, because that's what we were anticipating in the capital presentation back in January. But we've been able to reduce that down to 20,000. And again, this is another pick-of-it funding, so you would see it in the general fund budget, but we have a revenue transfer from the pick-of-it fund to cover that cost.
Is the new one gonna be aluminum?
We're hoping so, yes.
Good, that's good,
Then we
that's
don't
good.
have to fix it, we can fix it and forget it.
Yeah.
Right.
So, any questions? Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna bring Eric back to talk about roads.
So you can see here, without getting into detail, we have a 5-year plan on the roads. Actually, we've got kind of an extensive plan on the roads, but usually we try to maintain a 5-year plan on the roads to just try to project what we want to look at. Of course, every year we look at these roads to see what their existing condition is. Not all roads will deteriorate at the same, will not deteriorate at the same time. Actually, I was going to say deteriorate at the same rate. But effectively, we want to be able to take a look at those roads on a yearly basis and see, one, what type of treatment is best suited for that particular road, and also whether it's really can be deferred and something else be placed in its place.
The Kings Highway, Dyke to Sand Point, so that's the whole east end, huh? When is that scheduled?
Yeah, our intention on that is to actually, on that particular side, so yeah, so what we're looking at on that particular one, we would just be doing an overlay on that particular road, yes.
It says mill and overlay, but is that gonna happen soon?
Well, it
Yeah,
could,
yeah, this
In the middle of the summer,
this coming fiscal year, you don't wanna do this.
Yeah, I think
July
July 4th weekend.
So it'll be something that would happen in the
During the
fall.
road
Yeah,
race.
I mean, yeah.
During the road race.
And that type of work happens very quickly. I mean, there is it does happen very quickly. Once those paving crews get out there, it's not a matter of weeks, it's a matter of usually typically days that they're out there and complete that work. In that particular case.
So do you want to just briefly talk about the analysis you did this year of our rating of our roads and where we've been and where we are, and about the importance of investing at a certain point?
Yeah, so, we make certain assumptions. So there's what we call a PCR, which is a pavement condition rating that we look at. And it's basically, we want to basically get our roads when they are at a point where before they begin to completely fail, and that's usually when it begins to crack and deform. If you get rutting and those types of things, or if you get cracking, at that point, we're starting to lose that road where I'm gonna have to go, or the proper treatment at that point is begin to either mill the road, which is probably why we're doing milling on that particular road. If it's begun to crack and we wanna try to revive that, then add additional pavement, so we might be adding 2 inches of pavement instead. Or if it's gone even further, i.e., obviously the Wells District Road, the road is really out of shape at that particular time, so we opted to reclaim that road, so we actually pulverized all the pavement. So you can appreciate that I can either come in and just pave over the existing road, or I can come in and mill and then repave the road, or I may go to a reclaim, or even worse, I have to reconstruct the road and provide a new gravel base, which is super expensive. Upwards of probably a magnitude of 10 relative to surface in the road. So.
So the life of a road is like a sledding hill.
Yeah.
If you imagine, when you're at the top of the hill, it's very cheap to continue to maintain it. But once it goes over the hill, your costs expand.
What happens is, when the cracking begins to happen in the road, water will get into the road base, it weakens the road base, and further deteriorates the road very quickly. So we're trying to get it before we get that cracking, that superficial cracking that gets through that surface pavement.
So, I had the pleasure of driving on Route 9 today from, this was not in Kennebunkport, it was from Lower Village up to Sea Road.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And while I'm there, the KK&W is putting up this gigantic sign that they're gonna be, redoing their piping and things like that. 2 years ago, they did it on the other side of Sea Road, on the way to Wells, and that road had recently been overlaid. So the thing that I hear at various meetings where people come in, you've already either reclaimed the road or you've done an overlay, and they come in and they didn't know that they couldn't run an interruption. They couldn't, do a cut-in to get their services into a lot or several lots. So my question is, where you have reclaiming roads or a long road like Guinea Road or Beechwood, where people are going to start building homes off the road, generally they need to interrupt the road to get services in. So is there any, are there any things that you can do to mitigate that by putting in channels or culverts, or there's another word for it, so that you can take the services from the side of the road and run it under the roads?
So
various places along the road to mitigate the people tearing up a brand new road and starting the downhill progress early.
Right, so the challenge there is that every time there is a tap into a water main, which is typically, water district likes to be 12.5 feet off the center line. They're gonna be on one side of the road or the other side of the road.
Exactly.
So they need to actually physically get onto the water, to place a service, to get on the water main, and to do what's called a corporation, which is really drilling a connection onto the water main. So they literally have to dig a hole that's, 6 by 6, and get in there to get that corporation put into the pipe. And then they're gonna go across the road, either the long side or the short side. And there's not a great way, they won't, it'd be unlikely that they would place, they may put in services ahead of time if they thought, there was a ready to serve home. Most water districts I've dealt with don't like to have that much infrastructure just sitting out there. It's just another point of weakness, if you will, because if it's not being utilized, it's just gonna sit there. It's an investment.
Eric, maybe you could just talk about our notification and moratorium.
Yeah, so we certainly communicate, our roads. An example of that right now is So you'll find on the Wiles District Road, we stopped short after the Patty Creek Road. That's because of Water District, as soon as they're done with Route 9, they're coming to our neighborhood in Wiles District to get the rest of that water main done in that particular stretch of road. So we do communicate with them. If it's a major project and they know that, when they did Route 9 last year, we had them stub out of Route 9 so they wouldn't cut that road again on Main Street in Cape Porpoise. And now they're gonna extend that water main. So we do communicate with them. It's not perfect. Developers will come in. Our disincentive for the developer is they will have to pave the road both directions 20 feet beyond where they've excavated and across the full road. So there is an impact for them to do that. If you're cutting into a road that's been paved within the last 5 years, you will have to repave that whole section of road that you just opened up.
And if we are doing major work on a road, we do send a notice to the residents ahead of time, telling them that if they have utility work in the road, that this is the time period to do it. Because after that work is done, there's a 5-year moratorium on it.
Yeah, so a lot of people own their sewer laterals to the sewer main. In the state of Maine, in all of the state of Maine, is the sewer lateral is owned from the property owner's home all the way to the sewer main. We are responsible for the sewer main itself in the road, however, they are responsible for the sewer lateral. And often people may not know the condition of that sewer main, the sewer service, because, you know, it's out of sight, out of mind. It works well. I have no reason to doubt that it's gonna continue to work. But sometimes, you know, a little bit, we ask people, say, it may be worth the investment to videotape your sewer lateral to see what condition it is in, because you do own that, and it's costly, as I mentioned. To go back in after the fact and repave the road, it's a costly expense for someone. And we will pave it, you know, if we're rebuilding the road, you won't have to worry about the paving, so go ahead and have your
Okay,
service.
so the work that's done, the repaving is done by you?
If,
by the
yes,
town.
they get in there while we're
Okay.
working,
All right.
yeah.
So Eric, how do I look at the average pavement condition index? It went from 78.3 in 2020 down to 72.5 in 24. Is that
Yeah,
a
so
good
you look at-
movement or is that a bad movement? I'm just trying to figure out what's good, what's
Well,
bad.
down is worse.
Okay,
Okay, but I would tell you that, we wanna stay in that 70 to 100 percentile
okay.
range.
That's where towns aim to be.
Well, if
That's
I
okay,
got everything to 98%, we'd be spending a lot of money.
No, I'm just wondering where we normally,
Yeah.
we like to be in the 70s.
Yeah, where would I like to be? In probably the high 70s,
Okay.
if I had my choice,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Quick question, the pavement condition comparisons shared, I presume that the ones that are poor, very poor, are all being taken care of, or is there something that you're not gonna be able to get to?
Well, you know, it's a funny scenario, it's not as funny, it's not necessarily ha-ha. The challenge with, if a road is really gone and fully gone, it's gone, and it's a bad road to travel over, and it doesn't, to invest the money back in, does not give me a much, you know, it's an expensive venture. If I leave it the way it is, it's not costing me more money. The smart money says go after those roads that are in the 70s, and they're getting down in the 60s and 50s. And the smart money says go after those roads because that's the cheapest amount of money to get my road back to 100. Right, and so that's my least amount of investment. That have been said, we also understand we've got to go after these roads. The Wiles District roads, or frankly, Oak, West, and Lock right behind us, those are roads that are not in good condition. And we should at some point invest some money to get them back to 100 at some point, but it's got a little more, it's more costly to do those roads.
But we are doing West Oak and Lock in the next year.
That is a road, that's our next one, we're gonna bump that out of that category, we'll get them back up to 100.
So it's a real judgment call, I guess, yeah.
Yes, it's it's an investment in your infrastructure, yes.
Thanks.
Good.
Yeah, so we didn't ask for any sidewalk construction money this year because we still have some funding and with Wiles District, we need to catch up on our sidewalk work, so we're gonna focus on that.
And we're also gonna do a little bit on Main Street as well, right?
Yep.
Any more questions?
Thanks.
Thanks, Eric.
So next, we have recreation.
Good evening, everyone.
So as you can see in these pictures here, what I am asking for is a fence replacement. The 15,000 is for the fence and the installation. The removal of the old fence will be on us. So I would work with Public Works to get that removed. And then you can see in the picture how the turf along the fence is at different levels. So we would work to kind of level that out there, so it would be more of a even fence. Any questions?
Same type of fence?
It will be a
The
chain link.
chain
I'm
link
looking at a
fence?
black one though.
Okay.
Any questions? That was quick.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
So next, we have our Special Projects Fund. And so Eric can join me if he would like. So the first thing we have here is our Ocean Avenue Resiliency Fund. So this is to elevate Ocean Avenue by Wanby Beach and the Bush Compound. This portion of road was blown out in January of 2024 in that storm, and it was closed through April of that year. So we have applied for FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant funding. This is funding that's funneled through the state of Maine. We just had an update on the project at the last select board meeting. So the project was originally 3.2 million, and now it is estimated at 3 million. FEMA funding would be 75%, and the town would need to match 25% of that funding. Does anybody have any questions about that?
That's in this budget, right?
I'm sorry?
That's in this budget we're doing now?
Yes, yes. The other, yep.
Excuse me, is any of that funding in jeopardy?
So I have talked to the state, and I have been told that no, that funding is secure.
That FEMA is, okay.
She said this funding was not being affected. We'll see,
Good.
we'll see if she's working there next week. So
We'll see if we get the check.
I'm just kidding. So, next we have the Head of the Harbor Resiliency Project. So this year we put 50,000 in with a $50,000 DOT grant to do our preliminary engineering and design analysis of what to do about all the flooding on Pier Road at the head of the harbor. I thought we would be further along by now, but the opportunity came up to apply for this funding for Ocean Avenue. So we redirected our engineers' energy toward finishing that design, so we'd be able to apply for that. So we now are picking up the Pier Road Head of the Harbor project again. If we want to get this ready for final design and bid ready, which means we'd be eligible for more grant funds potentially, I estimate that will be 150,000, and that's what's in the budget. So we did make a list of roads and priorities after the 2024 storm, and these are the, this is the priority ranking.
I know we need to get the bid, but do we have any idea what we're potentially looking at if we were to go through with the work?
So at this point, we're trying to develop what's called a preliminary design report, which has not been completed at this time. We've kind of got it started. Fundings became available, FEMA funding became available on the Wanby Beach area, so we went to that and really wanted to finish that project up, and now we're returning back to this to finish that up.
So last summer, we had a neighborhood meeting. We walked the entire area around the head of the harbor. And the biggest challenge there is the close proximity of the houses there and the different elevations. And so if we were just to attack it in theory, houses would be below the road. And so that's when the engineers, after we met and talked about a variety of possible scenarios, we're looking at ways, the best way to attack that, also looking at where the water comes in and what the lowest point is. So they haven't come back to the board at this point with some ideas.
So Lori, so the sheet that you had given the board, the select board before, we had the 74,000, that was for the initial ahead of the harbor design. And then this is to
This
get
is
us to,
taking it to the next level.
this is to redo the design for the areas that we have concerns about, or,
Yep.
proposals, and then to get it to quote ready. To do the design.
Next. So also in our special projects is annually, we're putting 50,000 aside to replace about 20 fixtures a year. So we did purchase the streetlights a few years ago, and we've saved a lot of electricity costs, now owning them from CMP. But we have had to go forward and start replacing those fixtures, and our lighting committee has been working with us on that. So it's kind of a long-term project. We're doing a few a year.
These will all be LED.
Yep, they're LED currently, but, the platter lights are quite old, and the replacement parts don't exist on them anymore. Next. So this is just a comparison of our budgetary capital expenses. So you'll see, and this is in your workbook as well, that this is what we had in the budget for the past 5 years for capital, what we have used from our capital reserve fund balance, and so what that net impact to the budget is. So it just shows you how much we've been investing. And certainly you can see in 2020, that was the year of COVID, and, we were seeing prices at a much different rate in '21. But then they have escalated quickly, and that's been a lot of it is the cost increases.
Just going back really quickly, Lori, what was we just had, the consultants in to the last select board meeting. What time frame did they give us again for Wamby Beach again?
They were looking to have it bid by this fall.
Okay, so then construction most likely would be in 20,
Well, construction, depending on the timing and the availability of contractors, could be over the winter.
20,
That would be the soonest of 25, 26 winter.
25, 26.
We're not gonna do it in the height of summer, probably.
No.
So Laura,
Yep.
so if you did that, would you have to come back to the townspeople for more money? To do it?
To do the Wanby?
Yeah.
No. If we had the funding in this budget.
Okay, yeah, because you already got the.
Yep, then we
Yeah, I get it.
would have our share.
Yep.
Lori, how are all these reserve funds invested? They presumably get some kind of return.
So they are invested, there are state statutes about reserve funds and how they can be invested. We do have long-term, our trust funds and the Kittredge Fund that we hire H.M. Payson to invest. These funds do not have that length that we would invest them in that measure, but we do shopping around with banks and look at other interest rates to
Basically
see
interest.
what we can, yep. So they're kept liquid for the most part.
Laurie, can I just say, so on the Wamby Beach, the reason we need the money for the towns is because we have to have a match, correct? If I'm understanding is the match has to be in place in order to receive the grant. Without the
Correct.
match, there's no grant. So
Correct. So I had to sign a commitment letter saying we would have it in July. Okay, so that was all the capital budget. Does anybody have any other questions about capital? If not, then we are going to move to the Conservation Commission budget.
Page 74.
So that is on page 74, back under General Government. And our Conservation Commission has been doing pesticide testing. They did it a little last fiscal year, they're doing some this fiscal year, and they would like to continue that. And so that funding, is allocated in this budget. So that's a total of $5,300. Next is CHEMS. So, the CHEMS prepared a report for you. There's, their budget is in the book, but they also prepared, this report that, Yanina handed out to everyone, so you should have a copy of this. And, Jim Stockman, who is the president of CHEMS, is here. Jim is known for his brief speeches.
Sure is.
Thank you. First of all, I'm chair of CHEMS, and the first page is just showing you who our volunteer board is, our operations staff, and how long they've been with CHEMS. The question is what do you do with the $300,000? The simplest thing is to show you what we did last year with the $300,000. And so, how do I move that? Thank you. Magic.
Just tell me, Joe.
Thank you. Okay. So this is a number of calls that we have in a calendar year, even though CHEMS is on a fiscal year like the town. This gives you an idea of a 5-year comparison. By the way, the data collected, that main fire incident reporting system is one that we do it for the ambulance, and this is the latest report for 2023. If you want to know everything about an ambulance company in the state of Maine, it's in here. How many calls, what time, every detail, every call we go on is reported to the state, and it becomes part of our database, as you'll see. Next slide, please. One of the things that's very important to us is the fact that we only invoice when we transport somebody. So if we go to a residence, we go to somebody to help lift or to do something, that is a non-billable call. And so important to us is how many calls did we have on a monthly basis? What is the percent billable? What is the percent that is non-billable? Notice 65% are billable. That doesn't guarantee we get our money. And 35% were non-billable. The non-billable could be things like if we had a structure fire, CHEMS goes and stands by at that structure fire in case the fire department needs them. Once they're committed, we would then have to bring in mutual aid to take care of an ambulance call while our unit was at that structure fire. Next slide, please. This was just a study of calendar year versus fiscal year, but the important thing that we're looking at is how many calls do we have on a monthly basis in any particular time. And way over on column V is just my going through it and discrepancies between what might be on the state versus our records. That's why there is a column of notes there. Next slide, please. And if I'm going fast, I know you people want to get home, so if you have questions. This is the types of calls that we go on. Sick person, 275. Falls, 119. Assist fire department, 8. The information, since you have it in the packet, is there. I don't need to go over it, but let's go to the next slide. These are the sort of general descriptions of what they mean in terms of a call. From there, the next slide This is an attempt by my putting together the numbers for a 6-year study of incidents. What's very important here is the percent that we respond to. So for example, if you looked on line 26, falls. Whoa, 21%. When we get to one of the slides that we will get to very quickly, you'll start showing age. And you'll start seeing that there's a correlation between falls and age. So from there, let's go to the next slide, please. This is just a continuation of that. And from there, we go to the next slide, which is patient's age. This speaks for itself. The majority of calls are for over 50 that we respond to.
So what's it mean by non-recorded? What is?
Not recorded might be that one of the responders didn't put down their age, that it's not something in the database. That would be the simplest explanation at this point, because sometimes we have them, I've got a number of calls in any one particular month, and 1 or 2 of them might just be a blank in which we did something, but paperwork didn't follow through. So that's a catch-all right there. The important thing is that we are a senior citizen ambulance service in this town. Next slide, please. Location of calls, we do go out of town to help in mutual aid, but as you can see, 92% of our calls are within the town. From there, next slide, please. This is just a study of where do we go over a particular number of calendar year, just so we could get some kind of a trend, and it's very consistent. Next slide. This runs by the day of the week, runs by the hour of the day. Is there a good time to call the ambulance? Is there a bad time? From there, we go to a very detailed, next slide, please. This is a very detailed study. This is 6 years taking a look at the day of the week, the time of the day, to see if there were any trends. And basically comes out to be, oh, it's up on the weekends. Oh, it's up in June, July, August. But we have this data. So we know a great deal about what we do and how we respond. Next slide, please. This one, what's very interesting about this is that you call 911, it gets answered at York, which is called a PSAP center. Correct me, Chief, if I don't do that right. It's a PSAP center. They call our dispatch, Kems's dispatch. The state monitors from when that call, from 911 to when it gets to the PSAP, from the PSAP to from us being dispatched to we on the scene, from we're on the scene, how long we're on this, or no, how long did it take to get to the scene, how long we're on it. They have all of that data, and there are target levels. So why 5 to 10 minutes? Oh, our ambulance could have been at the hospital and just happened the call came in and they could respond from there. If you took a Google map and you went from Cape Porpoise to the Guinea Road, that's about 10 minutes, assuming traffic, weather, everything else. So you need to look at that 5 to 10 minutes. Obviously, if the issue is at Bradbury's, our times are wonderful. But in the summertime, in the middle of Dock Square with traffic, or on July 4th, that might skew that number. So I just want you to know that that's what those numbers are talking about. And those are the things that KEMS is very proud of, is the fact that we're getting 2 people, paramedic usually, and an EMT out the door within, and I've heard stories outside of our area of people waiting an hour and a half for the ambulance to come. And these are in big cities in Connecticut and New York. So we're doing pretty good. Next slide, please. This is, I'm sorry. This is the performance objectives of a EMS response. ALS unit arrives. How long did it take? 8 minutes. The 8-minute benchmark. How well did we do? This is where we're taking people to, whether it be MMC Biddeford or notice 206 are non-transport. Very important. Let's go on to the next slide, please. And this is just the hospital destinations and the number of calls and where we went. And again, 206 non-transport. That really is my presentation of what we did with the $300,000 for fiscal '26. It's going to be the same. What do we pay for? 80% goes to our employees, paramedics, and all of those people who provide this service 24/7. And what's unique about KEMS, even though there are about 28 of us in this, 28 services in the state, we are nonprofit. A lot of people who come from afar think, oh, it's just part of my taxes. It is not. The $300,000 that we ask for is one very, 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 very little small percent of the overall. Thank you.
Jim, just a
Yeah.
quick question, just, so why would you go to other hospitals? Like, I understand Portland because of the trauma type situations probably, right? But why would we go to York or something like that?
Many times it's patient request that their doctor is affiliated
So
with.
that they have to pay extra to do that?
No. It depends, again, that's the paramedic's call. If it's something that is a trauma that person knows got to go here, they'll override that. But basically, for the majority of these, the sick, the fall, that kind of thing where we're transporting, we'll take you to the hospital, that you'd like, York. But we've never gone beyond York. We've never gone beyond Portland.
And the other question, do you connect with Lifeline potentially? I think we did this past year, right?
We did, but how would you answer that, Chief? That's really.
That was the wrong one.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
So Lifeline for us, for the state, is when we have a call that a patient that could warrant it from a car accident, there might be a long extrication, where they can especially fly right onto the roof at Portland. That's the trauma center they're gonna go to. So it's an option that we have depending on the situation.
I asked for 2 reasons. Once, I'm in the Rotary Club, so we actually sponsor Lifeline.
Yep.
But also, I remember when I worked for Sea Dogs every night there was like probably 6 helicopters that come in while we're there. So it's very active.
Yep. Yep, it is.
Thanks.
But that's a call that's going to be made.
Like fight about it.
Both.
Okay.
It's going to be a collective call between the senior fire officer and the senior paramedic. Is that a correct way to express it?
For the most part, yes, but there are certain criteria that should be met both with the patient and where, like, we were actually in Arundel, just on the Log Cabin Road, in the fall, and we were able to land in the field right there.
Right.
That's not a landing zone. Actually, Parsons Field is a landing zone. Lifelight has the coordinates. You can say just they're headed there. And we could then bring the patient to them type thing. But we just lucked out that it was right there. But that's dependent on, yes, what the patient's condition is and being able to set up the landing zone, because we need people to do that.
Nice to know, thank you, appreciate it.
Wow.
I had a question on the funding, so I know that you send out like requests for people to join CHEMS. Aside from the 300,000 you want from the town, how much of your revenue, for lack of a better word, comes from the billable pickups?
It's about 40% in terms of what we call revenue on services. But we're currently out 120 days, or 150 days, or 180 days, because we're very low on the packing. Usually what happens is CHEMS has a charge that they come up with. We're not the highest in York County, we're not the lowest, we're right about here. So the first thing that happens when a company that we hire to send out the bills, we used to do it in-house 40 years ago, they send the bill first goes to, if it's somebody over 60, goes to Medicare, Medicaid, or whatever
Insurance.
federal state program there is. And that now might be 30% of the bill. They pay it. Then they take that bill and then they send it to the next group. Now, by the way, this is another 60 or 90 days, and it goes to the next group, which might be the private insurance. They pay that, then it goes finally to the patient to pick up the remainder. So yes, CHEMS goes out twice a year now for donations. This is about 20, depending. We've had some really good years. We've had some very lean years. We're going to be sending out again in April for our second fundraising. So we hope to get 20%. We'd love to get more, but that's the reality of not knowing what is coming in. So then we also offer a program in which you can take a subscription to CHEMS in a calendar year. And it's $150 for a single person, year-round, $300 for a couple, $400 for a family of 3 or more. Remember I said that we bill the Fed and the state people first and then the private insurance? You give us $350, we'll not bill you for the rest of that money. Because now we have the money and we don't have to wait 30, 60, 90, 120 or whatever. And that's about, it's been constant about 10% of our income. We go after grants. And the other thing that's disturbing to us that going through the legislature is they're going to start taxing us 6%. Yeah. So CHEMS needs to provide insurance. We're a private nonprofit. That's the next biggest after payroll is our insurance, our workman's comp. Beyond that, we're very frugal. We do have an endowment, and that endowment has bought a new ambulance every 10 years. We might try to stretch it out to 12 years, but at this particular point, we're looking to see what it will cost, and we have to order the ambulance 3 or 4 years ahead of time so we think it's going to cost, this unit that we have now is about $245,000. We bought it in 2020. The new unit we think is somewhere around $400,000 to $500,000. So that's going up, but that comes out of our endowment, and we're working with our endowment investment advisors as to what is the best way to do that, and they just sent me today new numbers of us buying an ambulance in 2030 and a new ambulance in 2040 in terms of what that looks like for our investment. So that information just came through, and it's going to my board tomorrow morning. Any additional questions, please?
I think we're all set.
So I think we just need to, so we talked about something at the CHEMS board that I think this is for mainly the select board side of it. We had the MRI report and, and that we talked at the last CHEMS meeting that the MRI report gave a suggestion to the board that we would combine CHEMS and fire at some point, and, per that report was in the near term. So when we talked to CHEMS about it, because we've done a couple things within the CHEMS department, one was to do the exercise that Jim just referred to, which was to look at the endowment and look at our big capital expenditures coming out, the rate of increasing of that, and then to see, our cash flow out of the endowment and, if there's ever a tipping point where we would be less liquid. So I think what came from that suggestion from the CHEMS board is that the CHEMS board would meet with the select board and discuss and hopefully come up with maybe some trigger points that would say if like I'm making stuff up now, right? We'd have to have the conversation, but just, maybe some trigger points if the endowment got to a certain level, if our rate of hiring or ability to have employees of certain levels got to, a threshold, we would then regroup. But I think, what I talked about to the CHEMS board is that to the select board, we were given, we paid and were given a consultant report that said that we should be combining. So the board has to do the due diligence now with the CHEMS board to see, do we believe that to be true in our specific situation right now? And in the future, should we be looking at something, when should we be looking at it, and or what are those tipping points that we need to monitor to say, okay, we got to look at this? Because we've expressed the concern over the years that CHEMS is a vital part to our community for all the stuff that Jim just showed, the response time, the level of service, and we don't want to be caught in a situation where we do not have access to that for our residents.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Was that enough words or too many?
That was plenty.
Okay.
Any more questions for Jim?
I don't know. I've been waiting to see what the response is to Mary Beth.
Thank you.
No, I think it was very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
You do a great job.
Okay, so next, if you go to the tab that says nonprofit requests, this is a little easier to look at than the budget page. So every year, we receive a number of requests from social service agencies, and we have a social service subcommittee of the budget committee that gets together and reviews these. So this is their spreadsheet, along with the memo behind it, that discusses what the agency requested for this coming fiscal year and what the committee is recommending. And they also make a recommendation on the miscellaneous agencies. And so that is here, and that is what is in your budget. What they recommend is what goes in the budget. So I don't know if anyone from the budget committee wants to say a few words about that.
I think it's pretty easy to read our summary. We've split out the agency type between agencies that provide services that are essential to life support versus other services that might enhance the quality of someone's life but are not essential to life support. So you see the two different categories there on that front spreadsheet, and ultimately what it comes down to is it's a recommended decrease of $641 when compared to last year's. And you can see what has stayed the same versus what we've increased. So That's,
Yep.
yes,
So, I have a question.
sure.
Kids Free to Grow, they didn't request any money, or was it a program that you didn't?
No, that, was it the Kids Free to Grow that, we did, they got approved for last year. But was it, they didn't submit their invoice for payment, Kai? Is that the agency, as I recall?
I think that what was determined was that we discovered they really don't provide anything for our community.
Okay.
That they
Oh,
don't,
yeah, that's right.
they don't come and do any kind of presentations or workshops or anything at all, but there's just no benefit for us.
Okay, well, good, thank you.
I guess maybe related to that, and again, I know the subcommittee on that did a lot of work on this, and I know it's not a lot of money in the whole scheme of things compared to the whole budget. But just looking at what was submitted in terms of, for every dollar that's for services for somebody, how much of that's going to administration and overhead? In some of these agencies, the number's like 75% is going to an executive director or agencies, not services to the people. And I know for mental health sometimes that may be professionals, but the one thing I would encourage is fund those agencies where they're putting more of the money towards the people who need the services and do it effectively, and encourage ones to kind of get a bit more scale, because some of these are redundant. I went through them, it's kind of like, they're doing similar kinds of things. Why do we need 2 or 3 agencies when one could probably do it better and reduce the overhead? And maybe fund more of those agencies with a bit more money to make it a bit more tangible.
Yeah.
So, just my comments.
Thank you for
It
that.
sounds like you have a volunteer for next year.
Yes, it does, so. Would love that. Nope, thank you.
Any other questions on social service? Okay, if you go to your Public Works tab and go to page 147, we have the shade tree budget. The shade tree budget is coming in similar to last year at $48,656. And this is a Public Works Committee, so Eric will speak to it.
Yes, so I thought Nina was gonna be here presenting this one, but I apologize. We have
Do you want the copy of this?
I don't have it in front of me, I apologize. Thank you very much. So this is actually
Carol gave it to him.
Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward budget. My apologies, we had a little miscommunication then. Most everything here really goes to the treatment of trees as well as the maintenance of trees. We really kind of tend to break down these things into category of treatment, so we try to go after Dutch elm disease and try to resist some Dutch elm disease and those types of things. So we do have the committee has an aggressive treatment program for the elm trees as well as others. We also do a lot of pruning of trees. You'll see that most of the expert professional that goes on here is really around people that we're hiring to do the trimming. Some that are not safe, for example, that might be endangering public health, and others are just trees that are in decline that we are opting to remove. So there is some salaries in there. We also do a national canopy project that we do, that we also have inventory of all the tagged trees in the town. So we are trying to keep up with that this current year that we're in right now. We are replacing all the tags on all the tagged trees and identifying their location, geolocating them as well on a map as well. That is really, for the most part, that is the majority of what is in this budget. It's not a wholly complex budget. We meet on a monthly basis and discuss our approach as to where we should be going.
Right. So the town has been a Tree City USA for about 45 years now. And the Shade Tree Committee is part of our ordinance structure. The committee was established by ordinance, and it's to take care of the shade trees that are really an important cultural point for Kennebunkport. So their goal is really to make sure that disease does not spread. Dutch elm disease, everyone's familiar with. There's been the emerald ash borer, other kinds of things they're aware of. They try to educate the public about that so the disease doesn't spread, and be aware of where it may infect trees so that that doesn't spread. And then really worked on our tag tree system to maintain healthy trees within the town view corridors.
Quick question, is there any coordination with local landscapers that might be landscaping a private home to make sure they are in somehow coordination with our tree systems?
I mean, our John Ripton, who's our chair, does communicate with the public quite a bit. I don't know that we have a program such that, I don't think that we have enough of a, well, I shouldn't say we don't have a robust, I would say that John responds and speaks with a lot of people on a yearly basis. Do landscapers approach him? I don't think so much, not on planting or types of trees.
But usually the homeowners do.
The individual homeowners do, it's usually established trees that people have, or they may have questions about the health or the decline of a tree, or what could be done to the tree to help it stay alive, if you will. Is it still in good condition? Can we just prune up this area? There are certainly concerns that if you cut too much of the canopy, for example, the tree will go into decline. And that kind of advice, John is very good about going out and working with people on those items.
Any more questions?
So if you go a couple pages forward to page 152, we have the cemetery committee. So we have many, many, many cemeteries in town. Most of them are private and very small and on private property. So in the cemetery budget, you will see at the bottom of the page the Arundel Cemetery. So that is the active live cemetery that is outside our town borders, but that we participate with them so that people can have grave sites there. We also spend a good amount of salary on maintaining, so mowing cemeteries, especially the ones that are most visible from the road. I mean, those are the ones we can get to. And then the rest is cutting and pruning and replacement and repair of headstones. So sometimes the trees that are in cemeteries are endangering grave sites. The headstones break. There is a lot more work to be done than this funding allows. So what the cemetery committee does is they investigate, where are the most troublesome areas, where are the ones that are probably going to be the most visible. They prioritize veterans, and so they work with the funding they have. I did propose more funding for them this year, both in miscellaneous, which helps them with repairs, and in cutting and pruning. Because it's gotten to the point that they can't really do the work that they're intended to do. They recently came to the board and gave a great presentation. They are one of my favorite committees.
They are definitely a really good
No,
committee.
they
do a
did
great
come,
job.
they did come, they gave a great presentation to the board, and so and the concern is that some of the trees that are overhanging these cemeteries and the headstones, so I think it's an appropriate ask.
Any questions on cemetery? If not, we're gonna head to two of my favorite libraries. First, up is Graves Library, and they are under recreation and other expenses on page 160. So you'll see that the request is very simple, but then the budget and information for Graves Library is behind that.
So, good evening, everyone. My name is Mary Lou Bukavalis. On behalf of the Graves Library, I would like to thank you, the Budget Board, and the Select Board, especially David Bancroft, our liaison, the staff at the town, and our fearless leader, Lori Smith. I also want to thank the staff, volunteers, and Board of Trustees at the Graves Library for maintaining a welcoming space and providing exceptional service to our community. You may have heard the quote, "Libraries are the great equalizer." Libraries serve people of every age, educational level, income level, ethnicity, and physical ability. For many people, libraries provide resources that they could not otherwise afford, resources they need to live, learn, and work. On March 13th, our president issued an executive order to eliminate funding for libraries and museums across the country. This is a huge blow to the state of Maine. Through the state library, our patrons and visitors receive exceptional Wi-Fi service, access to electronic newspapers, medical and financial information, interlibrary loan deliveries that are coming from all over the country, professional training and job search assistance, books if you are homebound, visually impaired, or hearing impaired, a statewide catalog for sharing materials and other resources, and audio and ebook downloads through the cloud library. All of these services are in jeopardy to us. Here in Kennebunkport, the Graves Library does its best to be a great equalizer. Because of the great work that our staff does, especially children's librarian Terry Bald, we average about 70 people every Friday morning for story time. And we have kids crying. I think I said this last year, kids crying because they don't want to leave at the end. So entire families are coming to spend Saturday morning with us. There are after-school programs and visits to the local school districts. We host monthly and weekly programs for our seniors: knitting, chess, painting, movie nights, 3 book clubs, craft night, community conversations with members of our town department heads, meeting spaces for the men's discussion group, lunch space for the old goats, remote workspace for anyone in need of working from home, tutoring, wedding and notary services, free tax help, a warming center in the winter and a cooling center in the summer, an outdoor green space right in the middle of town, summer music, new books on the shelves, daily newspapers, and job searching assistance. Every year, we are mindful of the budget that we submit and the financial burden on the residents of Kennebunkport. This year, we are especially mindful of all the projects challenging the town. So with regard to our budget, on the plus side, the bookseller has become quite a space. I don't know if any of you have visited lately, but we do offer the only full-scale, gently used bookstore in the area, and it is something that we are immensely proud of. It is manned 100% by volunteers, and we welcome people from several countries and have sold thousands of books, audiobooks, and music discs in the last year. Our bookseller made, you can see on the slide, $27,761. That is almost what we spend for our book budget. So it's pretty remarkable. We had 3 successful fundraisers. We had an annual event with Paul Hendrickson, the Secret Garden Tour, and an evening with Richard Russo and Tom Parada. During the summer months, we offered 6 concerts. So many people turned out to bring their picnics, their chairs. I think there's a couple of slides here for that. And just friends gathered to enjoy the live entertainment. And during Christmas Prelude, we offered a special movie night, bathrooms, parking, and a visit with Mrs. Claus. On the minus side, we are desperately in need of additional staff. Even though we are only halfway through this fiscal year, we had to hire another full-time staff member. And fortunately, we were able to hire somebody that lives right here in Kennebunkport. We struggle to find affordable and adequate health insurance for our full-time employees. and we now have to pay into the Family Medical Leave Act. Utility, fuel, supplies, bills, and book costs also continue to increase. And one more thing, our website is in need of a big update. So, all that being said, each year we come to you asking for only what we need. Yes, we could ask you for a bigger number, but we don't. So we try to raise as much working capital as we can through, the bookseller, our annual fundraisers, selling the Joyce Butler history of Kennebunkport books, our annual fund drive, and taking in money for photocopies and fines. Again, I will say that we are very mindful of the budget that we submit. We remain prudent in our spending and in our requests for assistance with ongoing operations. So we hope that you will see the value in both of our public libraries. One more thing. You may have heard that I am retiring at the end of June. So after working for 26 years in this very special community, I just want to thank each and every one of you for your support, your kindness, and your friendship. And I just love getting together at this annual meeting. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm happy to see what I can do.
Mary Lou, the percent of the endowment, do you know what percent you're actually pulling out each year?
We have a finance policy, and we take 4% of the balance each year.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck with your next endeavor.
Thank you.
So if you go a couple pages to 163, we have the Cape Porpoise Library.
And Mary Lou is always a tough act to follow, believe me. We are at Cape Porpoise Library, the mini version of Graves Library. Many of the same services, but the mini version. And it occurred to me, as I was preparing for tonight, that not all of the members of the Select Board and not all of the members of the Finance Board have library cards at Cape Porpoise Library. So I thought, you're getting ahead of me here. I thought I would show you, remind you where it is. It is in the first floor of the Atlantic Hall and has been there for nearly 100 years. Now the next slide. And the inside has really, unless you were to read the labels of the books, it really looks pretty much as it has for at least the last quarter century. That said, it has changed and is changing as we speak, in that the public is looking for different things than they used to. It used to be strictly books, and then we went into some of the electronic media, the DVDs and so on. Quite frankly, everybody's streaming them now, and so we're no longer even buying new DVDs. But we're finding a lot more people who come in and use it as a mini business center. They will come in to use the fax. They will come and use the Wi-Fi. They come in for notary services and so on. And all of which have been offered but never used as a proportion to the degree that they are today. Now, our patron traffic levels have remained more or less consistent, even though people are coming for a different reason. Next slide, please. What we are doing differently, though, we started a year or so ago offering more activities specifically for young kids. And in particular, on the, what is it, one day a month, where they have early dismissal from school.
Wednesdays.
They open on, Correct.
Every first Wednesday of the month.
Every first Wednesday, indeed. And so they're running a little workshop for the kids on those days. And then early dismissal days, those are the early dismissal days. During vacation period, they do the same. Now, these have not affected the costs of running a library, but we think they're offering a benefit that was previously not there, and it's building some allegiance that we hope will be staying with us in the future. And we do still have the traditional services, as I say, taking books out as libraries have been operating for many, many years, but also the personal deliveries of books to local shut-in regular library patrons. There are 2 book groups that meet there, and a large knitting group. Now, the knitting group, more than being a social knitting group, has actually been part of our fundraising. It wasn't planned that way, but they meet and knit, and then at the Prelude Fair, set up and sell their products and donate it to the library. And it turned out to be a very strong positive. The library, as I say, the kids' activities is not significantly adding any cost, but our costs are going up. Cost of fuel, cost of books, cost of snow plowing, cost, things over which we really don't have much control. Unfortunately, we did have to ask for an increase this year. We're asking for $18,800, which is a $1,200 increase over what the town generously gave us last year. We covered a greater percent of last year's budget with self-generated income, if you will, from the variety of kinds of sales and stuff that we've had, as well as our annual letter requesting donations, and have set ourselves an even higher challenge this year. I'm happy to say that even with that increase, the percentage of support from the town that we are requesting is a little bit lower than it was last year. But we very much appreciate the support we've had from the town in many years. Couldn't do it without you. And we are hoping that this request is satisfactory to you. Do you have any questions?
I've been going to that library quite a lot. And I started in 1955.
Is that where they taught you to read?
I'm still learning.
It's not so much a question, but maybe a comment or suggestion. Every bookstore out there, Barnes & Noble you go to, they're books places and they have a coffee shop in them. You guys are next to Bradbury Brothers and Cape Porpoise Kitchen, neither of which have a place to kind of sit down. Is there any opportunity to reach out to them to see if you could form some kind of, I don't know, like create an area where people can get a cup of coffee and go into the library and have a seat to read the paper or something?
We don't subscribe to any papers anymore. We used to, because there hasn't been a call for them. And quite frankly, people buy their coffee across the street at Cape Porpoise Kitchen and then come to us and ask to use the bathroom. Because you only borrow a cup of coffee. But no, we have not, because we really don't have much real estate within the library that is useful. And we're open, our normal library hours are truly only a total of 12 hours a week. 4 days, 3 hours each. That is the routine for borrowing books. Now, for the other things, like the knitting groups and the kids programs and so on, those are ad hoc scheduling beyond the normal hours that can be planned on. Now, we did actually bring in a picnic table outside, and folks who buy their coffee at either Bradbury's or Cape Porpoise Kitchen very often will sit there and read their newspaper in the summer.
Anybody have any questions? I think you guys are doing a great job at the Cape Porpoise Library.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so if you go another page or two, you will be on page 166. And that is the Parsons Way Committee funding. So Parsons Way is the property that was donated to the town many, many years ago along Ocean Avenue from basically Colony Beach down to the Bush compound. That land is required by deed to be kept in a way that allows for site views from the path and from the road. And so the Parsons Way Committee oversees the memorial benches, which people donate to, and the upkeep of those. So the funding really is just the payment in order to once a year go in there and mow and trim that property and take care of some poison ivy. And the cost increases because we've seen an increase from the landscaper that we bid out each year. Any questions on Parson Way? So if we move to the miscellaneous agencies, which are still under recreation, and we go to page 174. So the miscellaneous agencies are those that don't fit anywhere else. But there is Memorial Day, so each year we contribute to the American Legion for the cost of amplification for the parade. The Dock Square Monument is maintained every year by the Seacoast Garden Club, and they do a fabulous job. This amount of funding is what they've requested. They buy the plant material for the different seasons there. The 4th of July is a cost for the fireworks on the 4th of July. Can you go back? Thanks. The 4th of July that we share with Kennebunk. So we were told by Kennebunk that it would be $5,000. They just emailed us that the vendor has come forward and said in order to do the same show, it will now cost, instead of $10,000, it will cost $12,000. So Kennebunk has asked us to increase that from $5,000 to $6,250, and I told them I would pass that along. The Southern Maine Veterans Memorial, we do have some veterans buried there, and that is a cemetery that is specific to veterans, and we donate $500 a year there. And then the Senior Center Lower Village is now they call themselves just the center.
Actually, it's Spalding.
Spalding Center, sorry. It's hard for me to keep up over there. We contribute $2,250 towards that as well.
So, excuse me, Laura, this is the same money that's in the nonprofit group.
You guys have reviewed it, but years ago we moved it from
That's the
nonprofit.
same
Yes,
2250.
yes, it's not an
The
extra.
same 500.
Yes,
Right,
yes,
okay.
yes. So do we have any questions on that? No, not yet. I'll tell you. So before we wrap up the budget for tonight, are there any questions people have about what we've covered tonight or previously?
Sorry, one more question. Sorry, I'm asking so many.
That's all right.
I know there's a lot of due diligence that folks have done, especially like on all the fire and the public works, and I can tell that they're really good stewards of the town's money. And I think someone asked this on the first night, but have we considered looking at an option for getting some type of like local occupancy tax that we could get? And I know the state of Maine doesn't allow it, but we're like only one of 3 states in the country that don't have that available to us. Is that something that we can go to see, like with our local representatives, about getting that kind of funding? Because a lot of this wear and tear, it's from people who are here short term. So why not have them kind of invest in some of this infrastructure?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So I've been doing this work since 1988, and we've been talking about that as long as I've been on municipal work. So we have introduced it a few different times.
84.
Yep, and it has not been successful. A lot of times, the vote gets split between the rural and the more urban communities. There have recently been more bills that are looking at cost sharing, so that everybody, whether you had sales in your community or not, would get some portion of that revenue. But an MMA, our legislative policy committee for across the state, has lobbied for that for many years. I figured a few years ago that we would get $1 million a year from lodging tax here. I don't know what it would be today, but
What percent were you figuring?
1%.
At 1%?
1%.
I've never seen a 1%, it's always 2 to 5.
Well, that was all the state
Because
was
you go to
talking
New
about.
York.
Everywhere.
No, I don't
I
think that's true. I just drove to Florida and back and spent, I thought of the same thing you just brought up.
So-
Every hotel I stayed at, I paid at least something, and it was 1% was pretty common.
Yeah, I mean,
It was
That's
probably
not- that's not a
99%.
95 corridor though, if you get into center cities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever the
It is
center
more.
city.
Oh, yeah.
well,
Well,
Nebraska
I get that,
and
New York
Cincinnati
City
are
and
number one
stuff.
and number
They have
two,
city
so they're the
tax.
highest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess the point is like, so Maine has a 9%, but that's still, even with the sales tax, it puts us at the average in terms of that type of tax in the country. So I think like Bar Harbor's looking at 2%, but when you look at Camden, Bar Harbor, Kennebunkport, or Gunkwit, we all, I think, are seeing the same thing. And my understanding was that the last year that vote lost by 5 votes in the state legislature. So it seems like maybe the time is right, maybe to get our state legislator behind that, to see if we can push for that again, because 2% seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Because it still puts us close to the average nationally.
I thought that was actually I thought that was in one of their bills that's going forward now, and that the state was, don't quote me, but I thought that was going, in all this fury of bills for tax increases. I thought that was one of them, and I thought the state also tacked on like a 15%. They would take 15% of that 1% back, and the town could keep the 85.
Yeah.
Or whatever the percent was or whatever. But I thought that was actually just, I thought that was revamped into this whole big state tax thing.
Policy, yeah.
When you pay the 1%, I mean, when you're traveling and stuff like that, it's really not much. I mean, you're never gonna complain to the restaurant, I mean, the hotel or anything, because it is what it is, so you pay it.
Well, the hotels are also taxed per room. So people who come in, guests, pay the state tax anyway,
Sure.
as is.
But an
So
extra,
you're just adding another tax.
it was like $5 per stay on a Hampton Inn type thing, but a lot of $5.
But I think that's the key. It's like, yes, Maine charges 9%, but that still puts us well below, the national average. So again, as a resort community,
No, it isn't. 9%?
9% Maine state occupancy tax, 5.5% sales tax, so 14.5%. That's average for the country.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Maine charges 9% occupancy tax, so the residencies, Maine's 9%, and you have 5.5% sales tax, so it's 14.5% if you go and stay at a hotel in Maine. If you go to Omaha, Nebraska, it'll cost you 20.5% for their occupancy tax. So
That's because nobody goes to Nebraska.
I guess the point I'm trying to get at is, yeah, Maine charges 9%, but as an area like Kennebunkport and other areas where our infrastructure is used substantially by people who are not residents, why not ask them for a 2% on top of that from an occupancy tax standpoint? I think you said it's rounding error for if you're paying $300 on a hotel in Goose Rocks or something. Just throwing that out there. I mean, it's something we should consider, because otherwise, everything I've seen here just keeps going up and up and up, 5, 6, 8%. Okay, it's great that we live in a community where our valuation allows for a property tax mill rate that's low, but the really is that's a lot of money that comes out of residents' pockets. So asking visitors to pay a little bit more of the fair share for what they use, I don't think is unreasonable.
Well, what do you call the tax that they already pay?
So if you go to hotels, you'll see some.
I know I own one.
So,
Go ahead.
so I'll try not to be so, you pay a state occupancy tax, it's a local occupancy tax, local. It goes to the town of Kennebunkport. It's collected, it goes to the state, but then the state will refund that portion back to the locality. This is not unusual in a lot of cities.
Cities.
Towns too.
Cities and towns.
Little places.
I'm just throwing it out there. and
Well,
saying it's
I
like,
think
you know,
it'll
there's
be interesting. I think we should look and see if it is in the last package. Maybe, maybe our rep could tell us if it is in the last package, and if Charlie said it lost by 5 votes last time, I'm not quite sure it would lose this time.
And it's not a tax on the hotel owner, it's a tax to
Oh, I
people
know
staying
that.
there.
Yeah.
But, and particularly because of our evaluation, we get so little in the percentage back from the state tax that's collected. So it's a double insult. It's a double hit.
Yes,
We're getting all the wear and tear and very little
right,
percentage-wise of the money back.
right.
That's true.
So having the local tax to me is absolutely a necessity.
I agree.
Good thought.
Okay, so let's go to the next slide, Dave. So I just want to remind people about some expenses in the budget that are covered by transfers. I know we talked about it, but it can get lost in the mix. So we are looking at an additional police officer position 3/4 of the year. That cost is covered by a transfer from Dock Square Fund into the general fund. The public restrooms are another example of an expense that's in the general fund, but we transfer Dock Square funds to cover that. This year, we talked about the police equipment, the car cameras, the body cameras, and the public health ramp. All those costs are, we're looking at a Pickavit fund transfer to cover that cost. I just put a couple of budgets down here at the bottom as well. You can see the planning and codes budget and the amount of revenue between building permits and short-term rental licenses we're bringing in. And Goose Rocks Beach, we talked about the advisory reserve and the reserve fund. And right now, we're projecting, based on the fee increases, we'll see, that would be the amount of revenue. So I just wanted to put it on one slide so people could have that as a reference point. Next slide. So the other thing I want to talk about is our Special Projects Resiliency Fund. So the year we're in, fiscal year '25, we had an appropriation of $450,000. So what have we spent that on so far this year? We have spent that on dune restoration at Goose Rocks. We did funding for the Wanby Beach grant support and design. That was when we moved that forward in order to apply for the hazard mitigation grant, leaving us a balance of $148,000. Currently, we are expecting reimbursements from FEMA and MEMA for the restoration of the dune. Our Chief Everett was on a phone call today with FEMA again. It appears that we're going to get reimbursed for that. We don't have the money in the bank yet. And also, we have a DOT Head of the Harbor grant to help with the cost of the Head of the Harbor design. So we will get reimbursed for that. If we get reimbursed for all those items, it would put our balance back at $311,000. So in FY '26, I did make a request for $915,000. I was looking for a match for Ocean Avenue at $800,000. And to finish the design on Pier Road for $150,000. That would have left us with a balance, if we received all those revenues back, of $276,000. If we don't get the FEMA and MEMA funding, for whatever reason, we would have a balance of about $150,000. So because we were looking at those accounts and looking at what our FEMA reimbursement looks like, we also had a reduction in the cost of the Wanby Beach project, which the engineers just came forward with. So the project has gone from 3.2 to 3 million. So that would lower our match from 800,000 to 750,000. So I am suggesting that we might consider a reduction in the resiliency funding this year from 915 to 800,000. And that would leave us, if we get reimbursed, with a balance of 200,000. And if we don't get reimbursed, of 85,000. Currently, we have a variety of projects going on, including flooding resiliency in Dock Square and along the Kennebunk River. We were able to get grant funds for that. And we are looking to really focus on Head of the Harbor and Wanby Beach in this coming year. So I feel very comfortable with that level of funding, but that's something for the groups to consider. Next slide. So we also were looking at ways in which we could, of course, we're always looking at ways in which we can reduce the expense side. So what you see in this list is a variety of things that I'm looking at that we could reduce. So the top one is phone and internet. So Nicole and I met with our vendor this past week. And we're questioning a couple of the invoices. And so it impacted both police phone and admin phone. So it's not a large reduction, but we're looking at a couple of small reductions there. Today, Nicole and I were able to secure bid pricing for gas, diesel, and fuel for FY26, so July to June. And I think we got some very favorable pricing. So we deducted all those amounts based on those new bid prices from all those line items throughout the budget. We also, you'll see police new officer salary and police benefits. So when we have a vacant position in police, we budget for up to the 10-year mark, because we could hire somebody who's experienced at that level, and for full family benefits, assuming they'll take all the benefits. So we have recently secured a new officer for our vacant position. They'll be starting in April, and we know what that salary and benefits will be. So there is a reduction we see there. If we go down to solid waste tipping fees, Eric and I were talking more about removing the commercial waste. So in the past, we were at 2,400 tons for our municipal solid waste a year. In this budget, we went down to 2,000 tons. But we haven't gone through a year with no commercial waste yet. So we were unsure. We have done very well with solid waste recycling processing this year. So we feel like we can remove that 200 tons from next year's budget for a savings. The worst case scenario, if over the next few months we see the reductions are not that great, I think we have enough funding in our recycling processing line in this year's budget, because we didn't receive any contamination fees, that we could carry that money forward to cover that if we needed to.
Lori?
Yep.
Quick question, may I?
Yep.
We're gonna change to an automated system for pickup waste.
Yes.
What's the experience of communities have shifted? Do things change because they go into the automated, the picking the barrels up? I'm just curious, in other communities that have done that, do they see an increase? Or do they see a decrease, or does it stay the same?
I'd say if anything, it stays the same or maybe a little under, just because people are limited by what they can put out. I would say what people do see is an increase in recycling, because we'll be going to weekly recycling instead of every other week, and you'll have a bin for it. So that's what they anticipate for us. I did put at the end the 4th of July, which is the only increase in there that we just discussed. And then you'll see under capital, if we reduce capital by 115,000. So if we took all of these, or if the two boards are interested in taking these reductions, that would be a reduction of 250,000 total. So go to the next slide. So that would reduce our municipal operations, and you can see that capital would actually be a decrease from last year to this year. And if you go to the next slide, what it would do to the municipal portion of our commitment. So right now, we're at a 14-cent increase on the municipal portion, and this would bring it down to a 6-cent increase. So Nicole has papers to hand out that give you this new commitment sheet, if you were to do that, as well as the budget changes that we talked about. I know they're in little form on your PowerPoint slides, but just so you can see that. Do I have any other slides? I think that's it, right, Dave? Thank you. So, we were just fortunate to be able to have some of these reductions become available since we started the budget. So we wanted to make you aware of them and offer them as a way to help with the tax rate.
No, it wasn't 1 point.
A lot of work must have gone into looking at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we were doing the fuel oil and gas bids on Tuesday. We do it with a consortium, and we thought we had some good pricing, and then they had a technology glitch, and so they said the prices were no good. So they moved it to today, so we were crossing our fingers, and once we got the prices in, we finished up our sheet.
Thank you.
So does anybody have any other questions or feedback or
Hey, Lori,
comments?
is there a typo on this one?
What does it say?
When you went through the police new officer salary line, on that sheet that you just had up with all the negatives?
Yeah. Why, what
The
does it
original
say?
request for the
What?
salary?
It's 1.3 million,
That's
that-
total, right?
Oh, we're talking about just the officers that are affected, not the full amount.
So you're saying, so this isn't, so John was just saying, so that's for all officers combined?
It's not for one.
I'll let Nicole talk about that.
So
Yes,
I
I'll
put
apply.
in for that line
Yeah, that's what I
item,
was gonna tell
I
you.
put in the full budget that we requested, which is the whole department.
Thank you.
Right.
That's
And then
not
the
just
reduction.
new officer
Yeah.
salary.
Yes.
That, I knew it wasn't, but I was just kind of curious what it was.
Yeah,
Yes.
John, we were all gonna change our professionals.
A little too late for most of us.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's not what I heard.
So that's all I have.
Would you like to adjourn?
I think so. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Budget Board is adjourned for another week.
So just to review, next week, the board will meet and have a regular meeting, but they will make their recommendations on the budget, and then we will forward that the following day to the Budget Committee, and then the Budget Committee will meet on the first week of April, that Thursday, to make their
So
recommendations.
this is the last one.
No meeting next week.
This is the last one.
Next
you.
week,
For us.
you don't need to come, but you're always welcome.
You all set?
Good job all around. Thank you.
Motion to
Adjourn?
Second.
First and second, all in favor? Here we go. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.